Hey everyone, it's Michael GoosebumpsFan. Today I'm going to be talking about Goosebumps HorrorLand number 4, Scream of the Haunted Mask by R.L. Stine. Now, yeah, I've read quite a few of these HorrorLand books. I would say this is one of the better ones. However, when it comes to being a Haunted Mask sequel, this is the third out of the third out of the four, of that series. It's not really like a canon type thing. It sort of kind of is, but we'll get into that later on if I remember to. This is one of the better HorrorLand books, like I said, but it's not, like, amazing. It's not great. HorrorLand is not my favorite of the eras of Goosebumps. The many different eras, like Most Wanted, or the Classic Series, or Series 2000, or any of those things. But I don't think it's necessarily bad. And of course, the HorrorLand series, for anybody who's not entirely familiar with these, I think it was like 19 books or something, and I think about half of those had like a 100-page long story, and that's the case for this, and then it has like 30 or 40 pages based on a story that ties into a bigger story in the theme park that's kind of like Disney, called HorrorLand. It's kind of separate. It's kind of a sequel to the first 100-page story you read in each book, but not entirely. Now, the first 3 books before this I enjoyed. I thought they were mostly okay. I'll kind of just mainly focus on the Haunted Mask story. Now, of course, I recently read The Haunted Mask and The Haunted Mask 2 from the old classic Goosebumps series from back in the 90s, and they still hold up, and they're still fantastic. I had never read Haunted Mask 2 until recently, and it was incredible. I absolutely adore it. I love the TV episode adaptations from the 90s TV show. One of my favorite, if not my very favorite, Goosebumps books of all time is Goosebumps Wanted, which is part of the Most Wanted series. It's actually the first book of that. Goosebumps Wanted, The Haunted Mask, which is the 4th of the series, and probably the last one we'll ever get. Unless there's a Slappy World book that ends up having that in it, I don't know. But I really, really, really love Goosebumps Wanted, The Haunted Mask. I read this book once, and I read it like last year, right? And when I read it, I wasn't super incredibly enthused with it. I was kind of a little reluctant to get into this at any point during the month of October this year. And I'm glad I got a chance to sit down and reread it, because it's a lot better on my second read through. And I kind of recommend the same thing to you folks if you didn't enjoy it that much the first time you read it either. It does get a little bit better when you kind of know what's coming, but not really, not like you can predict too much. This is a very different type of Haunted Mask book, even compared to the 4th book, Goosebumps Wanted, The Haunted Mask, which is like 2 regular Goosebumps novels in one big book. It's like a 230-page book. This is very different, even compared to the first 2. Now, I'm a little confused, like I said earlier, about the canonicity of this. It talks about at one point, of course, the book is Carly Beth telling us what's going on. Her friend Sabrina is in this as well. It mentions at one point that all this stuff happens a year after what happened to Carly Beth, which would be the previous year, right? Well, the previous year was actually, from what I understand, I mean, we know that the first time Carly Beth ever encountered the Haunted Mask, the very next Halloween was when the whole thing happened with Steve, right? So does this and the Haunted Mask 2 take place at the same time? I don't think it does. I think it's just one of those typical Goosebumps problems, like one of those canon ignorance, listen to me, I invented a new word. I guess it's kind of ignoring its own canon. It doesn't really matter. It's kind of like the Not a Living Dummy books. You kind of will kill Slappy off in one book and then he comes back in the very next. We never know how. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really have any kind of problem with the story, in my opinion. But anyway, the story itself I actually enjoy, no matter where it takes place at. It's not my favorite of the Haunted Mask books. I don't want to give it away which one it is in the ranking, because I do plan on doing a Haunted Mask ranking book series once I reread Haunted Mask Most Wanted. Or the Haunted Mask, whatever. This book essentially is, like I said, focused on Carly Beth as our main protagonist. In the middle of the night one night, she wakes up hearing this noise downstairs. Kind of sounds like a little bit of a screaming type noise. She goes downstairs and there's a metal box that she had locked her original Haunted Mask in. And the mask is like, I love the way R.L. Stine's just writing about it this time around. He keeps talking about how the mask's lips are quivering, like it's trying to speak. There's just something unnerving about that to me. Just the idea of a latex mask trying to like mutter at you. It just, I don't know, there's something unnerving about that to me. I love that idea. I think it hits the book off on a great note. The book definitely does a good job. My hat's trying to fall off, which, by the way, the reason I'm wearing a hat on my head is because I went to get a haircut and I got butchered horrendously. So I'll probably be wearing a hat for like the next couple of weeks during these videos. I probably won't take it off until November. So we'll see. But yeah, I basically just got buzzed all over and I did not ask for that. I'm still livid. But anyway, back to the haunted mask story. Man. Essentially, the next day comes and it's getting right at Halloween, right? And Carly Beth and Sabrina actually work at this kind of farm. And this farm is kind of like a daycare type thing where they take care of very young kids, like first graders, so probably about the age of like 6 or 7, somewhere in there. And the kids are a handful, but some of them are very sweet, just like any daycare situation. My fiance actually used to work in daycare right when we first started dating 4 years ago. So I thought it was very interesting to kind of see that in this book, both times that I've read it. I thought it was a very interesting take on that. Of course, Halloween's coming up. Now that there's that weird encounter once again with the haunted mask itself, it seems like every single Halloween the mask tries to come back, right? And the thing is, there's also this stable nearby, the actual farm where Sabrina and Carly Beth, of course, actually work at. And the stable actually has this kind of urban legend thing going on with it in the town about these horses one night, years and years and years ago, like in the 40s, I think is what it was, like the 1940s. Something about a bunch of horses being scared to death by a stable boy who put on this creepy mask. And it kind of sends off alarm bell. Excuse me, I can't even talk. It's so late in the morning. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30, something like that. Carly Beth starts wondering if maybe the mask that was used there was her mask. But this urban legend is so weird, because Sabrina and Carly Beth, when they go to check the place out, they hear these horse noises. And they don't really know what's up with that. It's just really odd. It's a very weird story. There's a lot of focus on the urban legend thing, and not so much a focus on the haunted mask story itself, the haunted mask as an item or an object. I thought that was a very weird take on this. Both of the first 2 books totally focused a lot on that, whether it be in Steve's shoes or whether it be in Carly Beth's shoes. It's very interesting that we got this time. And again, I think it's kind of in a weird way. It's like a misstep. It doesn't really work as well as a haunted mask book. But on the other hand, I don't hate it by any means. I think it's a very solid story. I think it has a very cool October fall feel to it, a very Halloween feel to it. Not that it's amazing, but it's still decent for Goosebumps. There's some pretty good Halloween Goosebumps books, and this is one I think, in my opinion, could be a very decent one for the most part. I don't think it's going to be for everybody. I don't think most people who love the first 2 Haunted Mask books, or even just the first one, I don't think you're going to love this. I think if you're like myself and you love the extremely horrific Goosebumps 1 of the Haunted Mask, this is not going to faze you, except for the whole thing about the quivering lips on the masks. So the main 100-page story I like. It has kind of a cool plot twist involving something different in a haunted mask story type thing that I thought was very interesting. I don't want to give it away because it's a spoiler-free channel and everything, but there's some interesting things done here that I did not expect us to kind of bring that into a haunted mask story. It's not like anything adult or anything like that. It was just a very interesting type of twist. If you've read the book, I think you'll know what I'm talking about. I didn't expect the book to go the way it went. I do love the scene with the daycare in the finale. That's fantastic. I really, really like that. But for the most part, the 100-page story is really solid. Now, when we get to the HorrorLand segment, which, like I said, this pretty much takes place after this 100-page story at the beginning of the book, we're kind of just picking up with, apparently, that Carly Beth and Sabrina got invitations in the mail. Mainly Carly Beth did. She got a couple of invitations saying that she could bring a friend with her and spend like a whole week in HorrorLand, which is like a Disney theme park type thing. And of course, if you've been watching my reviews, we've talked about like 5 or 6 of these books, I think, by now. And Sabrina and Carly Beth hang out in this place. And the first thing they do is encounter some boys they think are cute, which happen to be Mike and Billy from the first 3 books, Horrorland sections, that are trying to find, Billy's sister, which Billy is Billy Deep from the Deep Trouble books. He's from the second book of the Horrorland series called Creep from the Deep. He's trying to find his sister, Sheena. And Mike is actually from Monster Blood for Breakfast, which is the 3rd book of the series, the Horrorland era series, whatever you want to call it. And they're trying to find their friend that's missing that went invisible, which is Sheena, which is Billy's sister, like I said. But they're also just trying to look in general for some other missing kids like Brittany and Molly, who were in Revenge of the Living Dummy, which is the first of this whole Horrorland series, too. This whole thing's going wild. Carly Beth and Sabrina just got brought into this when they try to watch a magic show at the theater, which I believe that Mongo, whatever his name is actually the guy from Bad Hair Day, the magician. I think that's who it was. I'm pretty confident. I could be wrong about that. They even had the rabbit from the cover in the story. I haven't read that book, so I don't know entirely, but I know there's like a famous magician in Goosebumps as a lore, right? For like the classic series. I know there's something like that in Bad Hair Day, so I think that's who that was in this book. So that's kind of interesting. I'd like to read that at some point. Maybe next year in 2020, whenever I get a chance, God willing. But this HorrorLand segment, I don't really love. It's kind of just Carly Beth and Sabrina getting drug into this whole mess. Who thought at any point that we would ever get a story of Carly Beth herself, one of the best Goosebumps characters of all time, being brought into Horrorland, one of the best Goosebumps books or locations or anything like that, settings, whatever, for any of these books. Who would have ever thought we would get this? So it's kind of a little bit of a letdown, I think, for the most part. It is just like 30 pages long, like I said, but it's really not as special as I wanted it to be. There is a really cool scene with a Make-A-Face store, which is involving masks, and I really, really love what they find in the back room that absolutely just creeps me out every time I read it. When I read it last year, it creeped me out. When I read it this time, it creeped me out. You just can't help but get chills on that scene in particular. But that whole Horrorland segment, I don't really love all that much. It's not really the best. Even the ending of it is not all that great. Yeah, the book is not the best Haunted Mask book. Scream of the Haunted Mask is just very decent. It's very okay. It's not bad by any means. Please don't take it like that. It's just not the most exciting thing when you get to the Horrorland segment. Kind of drags it down a little bit, I think, in my rating for the most part. Very much like I talked about with the second half of the Goosebumps One of the Haunted Mask book, where it doesn't even focus on the haunted mask. It focuses on a pumpkin patch type thing with the best friend of the book. So it's kind of the same problem that was starting here and then ended up there. But Scream of the Haunted Mask, like I said, is not a bad book by any means. I'm sorry it took me so long to get this review out as well, because I have tried my best. I've just been having a really hard time. I had a really bad week with the haircut and everything this past weekend. So I'm just thankful I finally got to read this and get it out of the way, and now I get to read the one that I love to death, which is One of the Haunted Mask. But if I had to rate Scream of the Haunted Mask on a 5-star basis, I'd probably give this like a high 3 out of 5. It's not bad. Please don't take it as a bad review for a 3 out of 5 star rating. It's just not exceptional. It's not really great by any means. It's close to being a 4, I would say, but it's really, to me, it's a very weak Haunted Mask book, possibly, potentially, the weakest of the Haunted Mask books, but certainly not bad by any means. I think it's one of the best of the Horrorland series, right there with Revenge of the Living Dummy and Creep from the Deep, which is also very, very good. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Scream of the Haunted Mask? Put your thoughts in comments down below, guys. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Thank you for watching. Happy Halloween. Please be careful going out trick-or-treating and stuff. I'm going to try to get the rest of these Goosebumps Halloween reviews, pushed out for you guys real quick, because I'm so bored with reading Halloween books right now, because there's so much going on in my life at one time. And I just want to get everything done and covered for you guys to make sure that I got everything fulfilled for you guys that I could when it comes to Goosebumps Halloween type stuff for this month. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for bearing with me and being patient with me as I try to burn through this stuff and deal with some life stuff that's going on. Anyway, may the Lord Jesus Christ bless you guys today, and goodbye.